Okay, I hope it works. Let's see.
We can like hang up or hang on until people kind of figure out the link or whatever.
Yeah. You should see it on Facebook already.
Oh, okay. Let me have a look.
It's a little bit slow. Can you see it?
Oh yeah, I can. No way. Cool.
Hello.
Excellent.
Who is online? There's one person. Oh, which is me, is it?
How's the quarantine been treating you, Mel?
Okay. I mean, I thought I was doing great until I think I started cracking last week.
I've had my moments too where all of a sudden it was like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. Like, you know.
Right. I really miss the outdoors. I'm a very outdoorsy person, so I really miss the outdoors.
I 100%, and I'm even more upset that, you know, our macro trip to Tiananmen got canceled. You know, it breaks my heart.
I was really looking forward to that trip, to be honest, and it's really sad that unfortunately we can't make it, and it's supposed to be next week, right, Roy?
I know. Such a bummer.
It's really one of those trips that I'm really looking forward to, and I haven't had like a proper fun dive trip in a while. So yeah, it's always been teaching. So yeah. How are you doing though?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm just kind of taking over. Work is work, and it's kind of nice, like being able to be home and you can do like tons of cooking while you're, you know, like while you've got like work going on. You can go and kind of quickly run and like take care of stuff, and you can do a lot of that, and you know, it's kind of fun. Actually, it's funny. My mother was here when this whole thing kicked off, so she's been quarantined with me for like the last 5 or 6 weeks. So she's absolutely loving it. Like she's having a whale of a time. Probably one of the few people that's actually enjoying this.
She's having time with her son.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. Oh, she's getting the best visit ever. But anyway.
Okay, let me just do a quick introduction about yourself, Roy.
Sure.
For those who don't know, I've met Roy 2 years ago, 1 year ago. I think it's 1 year, right, Roy?
I think, yeah, it's hard. It's all kind of blends together when you're on a dive trip. You know?
Yeah, and I see you so often.
I know. Especially since you opened your beer stall in your Flow Dive Center, you know. Now it's like you see me plenty, yeah.
The craft beers attract people like you.
Exactly, yeah.
So, a little bit introduction about Roy. How long have you been diving, Roy?
I actually got certified like 10 years ago in 2009. So my dad, I was really lucky. My father was into diving, and he took me and my brothers. Sorry, I'm just having trouble with the screen. There we go. He took me and my brothers to Sipadan back in 2009, if you can believe that. And then, so we got certified and everything, and then we went to Sipadan, had an amazing dive trip. And then,
introduction about Roy. Hold on.
I actually got certified like 10 years ago in 2009. Oh my God, is that my voice? You
know? So you did it in Sipadan, which is like one of the most amazing places that you can go.
I know, and it's weird when you start at the top, and then it's like, how can anything else ever live up to that? You know, and
it's not that
but luckily
bad.
I found Flow Dive Center, so thank goodness for that, because you know, otherwise I would have nowhere to go diving. But no, but actually it was like I didn't go diving again until I moved to Malaysia in 2017, and I met my friend Irv here in KL, and he as you know, Irv, he loves diving, and so he got me kind of diving again. And then I decided I wanted to get a GoPro and start recording our dives.
How was that? I think you went back to Sipadan as well, right? Your first tool was actually the GoPro, the trusty handy GoPro, which a lot of beginners do use. It's easy to use, and again, you went back to Sipadan, your first dive location. to start your photography slash videography journey. So how was it like?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I definitely felt like Sipadan wasn't as good as it was maybe 10 years ago, but it's still like one of the best dive sites in the world, probably. So it was absolutely amazing, and I even ticked off one of the items on my bucket list, which was to see a flamboyant cuttlefish. And so, like, I left that trip like on cloud nine. I was like over the moon. And at that point, again, yeah, I was using a GoPro.
So
And then I had a GoPro with a macro attachment, so it was almost like a GoPro with like a magnifying glass stuck onto the front of it. And you could pop the magnifier open if you had like big fish, and then pop it back on for like a nudibranch or something. And that was I actually got some great footage of that. You can even freeze it and take a still. So for someone who just wants to try it out, that's a really good option.
how was that like I mean it's your very first time, having a camera underwater. How was that like for you?
I think it was so wonderful because, when you get out of a dive, I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes I go diving and I see all these amazing things and I think how wonderful and what a great experience. And then I get up and it's almost like I was in a dream and I have trouble remembering like all the little details and every single thing I saw. So one of the things I really loved was being able to take that experience and then bring it back to the surface with me instead of just in my memory or something. But to be honest with you, I really noticed I was way more interested in still images than I was in video for most of what I was doing. I would take still images and I found that like way more interesting.
That's I mean, for me myself, I love photography as well, versus video, which in a way is a plus point and a cons, because as owner of a dive center myself, we actually videos work better. I think it garners much more engagement and much more interest. But yeah, I think both have its pros and cons. And for yourself, like myself, I definitely like stills much more. So tell me more about your very first camera and your first what prompted you to get your first camera.
Excuse me. Well, actually, it was you that helped me start that off because, if you want to take video underwater, it's really easy. You get a GoPro. I mean, I don't know of many alternatives to GoPro.
Roy, sorry.
The market. Oh, yeah?
Roy, sorry, your sound is getting a little bit soft.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Check.
Yeah, there's like an echo.
Oh, okay. Is it still there?
Yeah. Do you have an earphone?
Not with me. I'm way too Web 2.0 to have earphones. There's no echo on my side. Is there still on your side?
Yeah, it's okay. No worries about it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell us about your first camera.
So like one of the confusing things was trying to figure out which camera to get, and so it was just so daunting. I didn't even want to go there. And then actually, it was you that was saying, "Oh, you should just get the TG5," and I was like, "Oh, there's like a standard camera to get," and so the Olympus TG5 was my first kind of underwater still camera.
Okay, how do you find it?
You have to get red, obviously. I mean, what kind of normie would get a black camera? You have to get red. It's just so pimp. People still say pimp, right? That's still a thing, right? But actually, I personally think the TG5 is a better option than a GoPro, just because you can do video as well as doing really good stills. So I thought this was a really good option, and I think it's a really good option for anyone that's kind of ready to take their first step into photography, but don't want to buy a full mirrorless setup like right from the get-go. I think this is actually, I mean, I used this on land for nine months or so, and I got great results on land and in the water.
Yeah, so you do land photography as well for macro insect photography. And guys, his shots are amazing. And his reason is just purely because he can't practice. He can't go diving all the time. So
originally it was literally just for that was the only intention, was I was going to do that to practice for the dive trips. And then now it's become like this complete obsession on the side as well, on the side. In fact, my Instagram is Roy the Dive Bro, but actually most of my photographs are now like onshore. So kind of funny, how things work out like that.
You should call yourself Roy the Macro Bro.
I know. Well, no, it's too late to change it. I think it's stuck now. That's my brand, I guess. But another thing to get for the TG5 is this macro attachment. So, normally you just have your camera and then there's a flash up here on the side, and then you have a little diffuser attachment you can put on to the front of it and just clicks in.
That's for underwater?
Oh, no. This is specifically for onshore macro. So you can use this and get very diffused light, which is very important for macro and underwater macro. In fact,
maybe you can share the links with us to all these products on the chat area on our Facebook page.
Sure.
So our viewers can actually have a look at those products as well.
Well, Mel, I think you also sell the TG5 and the new TG6. Is that right? And Flow Dive Center.
Yes, we do sell the TG6 actually. We are currently having a promo, the TG6 with the underwater casing, as well as you guys are getting a free battery and a casing for free upon purchase and upon registration online. It's only 2,850. So it's going to be a steal. We'll deliver it for free to people who are staying in Klang Valley. So if you guys are keen, write to us. We will definitely be more than happy to set you guys up. Yeah.
And as a special promotion, I will also be giving Mel my own TG5 settings that you can plug straight into your camera and get going with underwater macro immediately. So that's a one-time offer for Flow Dive Center only.
But I'm gonna ask you, what's the settings that you guys use? That's a part.
Oh yeah. Is that part of the talk? Okay, fine. Well, then maybe for people who watch the stream, then you'll get to know. But actually, yeah. So for the TG5, it's not mirrorless, so you don't have like full manual control like you would. Actually, can we just check no one else is hearing echo? Like, I just wonder if anyone on Facebook is hearing echoes.
So guys, if you guys are hearing any echoes, can you guys just tell us if you are? If you're not, then that's good, right? If you are not, just put a thumbs up. That'd be great.
Seems to be working on Facebook, on at least the feed.
It's fine.
Yeah. So all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. So and actually, I've got to give a shout out to Mohan Thanabalan from Scubaholics or Trident Dive. He keeps changing his name, so presumably one of those will work. But when I bought my TG5, Flow Dive Center wasn't an option. Otherwise, of course, I would have gone to Flow Dive Center. Where else would you ever get your dive photography equipment? But I went to Mohan Thanabalan at Scubaholics Anonymous. And he actually really helped me out and like set my TG5 up like from the get-go. So I mean, the main thing I would say is like, there's lots of different modes on your camera that you can have kind of aperture priority, so you can change the aperture yourself, and the camera will determine shutter speed and all of the other camera functions. Or you can have P mode, which I think is probably better for underwater macro because it means you have less to control. So for cameras, you're thinking about f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO. And so in all photography, those are the main three things that you're controlling. So the way I have my camera set up is that I have it set up at ISO 100. I'm really picky about ISO. I do not like. Some people are like, oh, I don't mind noise. I'll just set it to like ISO 400 or 300. For those who aren't into photography, ISO is how sensitive your sensor is to light. So if you have a lot of light, you can set your ISO to really low numbers, and then you get a much sharper image. Whereas you can set it to higher numbers if you don't have that much light, but then your image is much fuzzier and less sharp. I'm a sharpness junkie, so I always have my ISO set to 100, and then I don't have to think about it anymore. And then I have my camera set to P mode, so that means my shutter speed and aperture and my f-stop number are determined by the camera depending on how much light is coming in. And that just means that basically you have nothing to worry about when you're underwater because you already have to think about your air supply. You already have to think about what's going on, where you are in the reef, your buoyancy. You don't really want to be down there like trying to fiddle with little, sticks and little dials and knobs and God only knows what else. So, P mode on the TG5 works really well.
So
I
what
think I had some
mode
other.
are you using currently, Roy?
For diving on the TG5, it's just in P mode.
In P mode, and what's your settings? Your usual go-to settings.
Yeah, ISO 100, and then P mode controls the shutter speed and aperture. So basically, I set the ISO to 100, and then the camera will automatically adjust the other two things to adjust for that ISO setting. You see what I mean? So, like for instance, if you don't have a lot of light, your camera will set your f-stop to 2.3 or whatever the lowest setting the TG5 will go to. And it will also set the shutter speed to like 1/60. But if you have a lot of light, but it'll go to like f-stop. I think the highest I've seen it go to is like 0.11, and then the shutter speed went up to like 1/250. 1/1000 is actually when the TG5 starts to give me my best images. So yeah, the P mode is controlling everything, and then I just control the ISO, and I say it's 100. And then that kind of sets the P mode to do everything else automatically. One thing you could do if you wanted is you can also set in the TG5, you can go into the menu and set a max and a min shutter speed. So your TG5 will never, even in P mode, it will never go under 1/100, so 1/100th of a second. Or you could set an f-stop of like minimum like 2.3 or the maximum of like 7 or 8 or something like that.
Okay, Roy, you are very, very technical. So I think for beginners, you probably lost half of us already. How about we do this? Maybe do you have any amazing photographies that you want to share? And then maybe you can walk us through what do you mean and what you've mentioned earlier. Yeah,
Okay,
like for
yeah,
example,
actually,
yeah, like for example, if you want to achieve sharp images, your coin term, sharp. And what's the difference between like a high ISO and a low ISO kind of photos? And what about shutter speeds and aperture and things like that? So maybe if you can show some of your photos, that would be great. Yeah. So go ahead, you can share your screen if you want.
Okay, I think I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's so this is an application called Lightroom. This is made by Adobe, and it's kind of the go-to industry standard for editing pictures, which I'll probably talk about in a little while. So here's some of my land-based macro. So let's go to diving pictures and let's look at some of these. I thought I had a really good example of well, actually this might work. So this is porcelain anemone crab. You can see that you have quite good sharpness here around the eye, and then you have some fuzziness back there. Can you see that, Mo?
Yep.
Okay, so.
Do you want to zoom in?
Sure. So we have pretty good sharpness here around the eye, by the way, that's kind of a rule of photography is you need to have the eyes in focus. So, and I've never seen an example of any pictures that I've taken where the eye wasn't in focus, and I liked it. It seems to be a pretty hard and fast rule that the eye needs to be in focus. But you can see that the eye here is in focus, and then this claw is kind of blurred out quite nicely. So which is kind of what you want in photography. I mean, this blurriness gives it like some depth and some texture. So having a low f-stop or low aperture number, it's also referred to as a wide aperture, would only give you like focus right here on the eye, and then it would blur out more of what's going on behind that eye. Whereas if you have a high f-stop number or a high aperture number, so like f11, you would get more of this would be in focus.
So guys, if you don't understand what aperture is, just a quick add-on to what Roy is saying. So basically, a camera, you have the hole where it allows lights to go through. So the higher the aperture means the bigger the hole would be. Sorry, the lower the aperture means the bigger the hole would be. So that means you will actually get much more information. You get much more detailed. You can also do bokeh as well. Bokeh meaning to say at the back, like earlier Roy's photo of the crab, where you get the background which is going to be blurred. If you have a smaller, so think of it like an eye of like your eye, your iris. If you have more light, your iris will actually be smaller. But if let's say there's less light, your iris will actually be bigger. So that is a very simple layman kind of explanation. And what he's saying is, if you want to have things like a blurred out background, you can actually have your aperture high, so you get a bokeh. That's right, Roy?
Yep.
Okay.
And right now I'm showing you an example of like a low f-stop number. So this is like a wide aperture. And what that means is that your focal plane, this is very important for macro as well, actually. So in macro, the smaller the thing you're photographing, like right here, you can see a Thanaya bamoensis jumping spider. Malaysians will recognize these because kids catch them and get them to fight each other. I don't know if you've ever done that. You've never done that? Okay, good for you. You shouldn't. Yeah, it's probably a bad thing to do. But this is an example of a picture that I took using my mirrorless camera, and this is using an f-stop of 4. So this is like a really small f number or a really wide aperture. And you can see that we have good sharp focus here on the leftmost eye, but everything else is blurred into oblivion. But quite frankly, I love this this kind of look for photos, so I'm kind of addicted to this. I've noticed a lot of other macro photographers don't like doing this, except for obviously Mohan, who's kind of a master, at these kind of pictures. But yeah, that's an example of like this is the kind of game photographers are playing. They're playing. They have a focal plane, and then they're moving it over their subject in a creative way. And then in macro, it gets even more important because the smaller the subject, the tighter that frame is. So you see that there's a tiny amount of that spider in focus. So it gets really hard to kind of get the whole subject in focus.
Okay. So you've also mentioned about shutter speeds and also ISO. Maybe you want to talk about ISO first?
Yeah, ISO. I mean, I don't have many good examples of. Let me think. I mean, yeah, generally speaking, like for some of these pictures, I almost only ever use ISO 100 or 200 at the max, and anything more than that, just kind of I'm really picky about it, so I just never use much more than that. People can experiment with it. They can just kind of take some pictures with higher ISOs and see what kind of results they get. I think that's really important. Is getting your camera, setting up a lab in your apartment, in your house, and I have these little toys that I kind of practice on. So I'll get these on my desk, and I'll just take pictures and try and use different techniques to see what works, and then just experiment with ISO and find out what works for you. For me, I'm just so picky. I'd rather miss pictures and not have a higher ISO. That's my thing. And in terms, oh yeah, go ahead. No.
So just to give you guys a background, ISO is basically if you have light, hence the color will be, the photo is able to be a bit more saturated, so you won't actually see it pixelated whenever you take a photo. If your ISO is really high, it will make do for your lack of light. So but however, when you see the end picture that you have, is going to be grainy. So the quality of the picture is not as good as a proper low ISO photo. So to achieve high ISO, you need to have very good light source, which is something that we'll talk about after this. Roy will probably has his own favorite. I have my own favorite of light source that I use. But especially underwater diving as well, underwater photography as well, I think light source is very important, because we all know, we're all divers, I assume, and we all know light will go off at the deeper you go. So we do need light sources to actually try to compensate that, and the better the light source is, the more better quality photos that you'll actually get. So yeah, Also,
And
back to
actually,
what, yeah,
yeah, on that note, actually, the more I learned about photography, I think, and not even just macro or nature or underwater, I think for all photography, light is the most important thing.
yeah,
The better and better you can get your light, the better and better your photos will get. And actually, macro, I think that rule is doubled, in effectiveness. So like, you'll see macro photographers walking around. So let me just show you this is the camera I ended up settling on. This is my Olympus EM5. And then you'll have a flash unit that goes like here on the top. It goes the other way.
are you planning to bring the mirrorless down underwater?
That's the dream one day, but I'm still not brave. I just, it would break my heart too much to see it be flooded underwater and not being able to do anything about it. I think it would crush me. So I
That
just
was
can't bring myself to do that yet, but I'm super tempted. So
that was
one of the things about, oh yeah, go ahead.
that was what happened to me, to my Fujifilm. I actually got the mirrorless first, and then I flooded it, and then I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I'm just gonna get the TG5. I'm actually using the TG5, and
Yeah,
guys, TG5, TG6, even if it floods, it's waterproof. Of course, you still have to use the underwater casing, but it is less likely that your camera is gone. Now
yeah,
my camera is just a very nice, expensive paper holder. So, so it's really, really costly. So something about gears we can actually recommend for you to do if you're beginners. TG5, TG6 is a very, very good start. Easy to use, amazing for macro. One of the best
mm-hmm.
lenses in a point and shoot underwater camera.
Yeah,
On top of that, like I said earlier, it is waterproof as well. So that is really, really, really good choice for underwater photography.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Roy. You were saying about your new shiny camera.
Well, yeah, my new beautiful shiny camera. Again, like light is king, and for macro, that's like to the power of 10. It's like it's the most important thing. And so with macro photography, at least on land, I think it's good to start with on land and then compare it to underwater. Um, we need like soft light, and you're focusing on something so small, it's really easy to blow it out. So when you have too much light and you take a picture, the highlights can become like oversaturated, and then when you look at your image later, it's just pure white, and the computer, there's nothing to process. It's just this spot on your image that you can't edit. So it's really important you don't blow your images out. And so the way we do that is we use these diffusers. So this goes on your flash like this. And again, it's good to start with land macro, and then I'll explain how this applies to underwater. But if you ever see me walking around, you'll see this kind of this is an MK diffuser. I'll show his logo, MK diffuser. These are really, really good. And this, I mean, so it moves the light all around your subject. But you can also pop this thing out and attach it underneath, so you can then you can get light going from underneath, and it makes the light just extremely, extremely soft, and that's how you can get like much better quality pictures. But it also has a really important function where it has a focus light. So when you're moving your camera over the subject, it blocks all the other light, and your camera has a hard time focusing. But when you turn this light on, it lights your subject up just a little bit, and your camera can focus really quickly, and that makes a huge difference in terms of sharpness. Like I had a noticeable uplift in sharpness once I started doing that. So MK diffusers, the guy's in Malaysia, he makes them custom for each camera, and they're really good. It completely changes the game. But then going back to underwater, obviously I can't take a flash unit down underwater unless I buy a specific underwater flash. So what I tend to use underwater is a snoot. So you can see here, it's like sort of a flashlight that's underwater or waterproof. And then so what will happen is I'll have my current setup at the moment, and I'll show you my new setup, which I haven't gotten to try out yet. Mel knows what's coming. Is that I have my camera. This is my underwater casing. So I'll have my camera, and I'll move into my subject, and then I'll get this this flashlight, and I'm kind of diving around, and I'll be looking for my subject and take a picture that way. So when it comes to underwater diving, or underwater photography, you know, your lights are going to be measured in lumens. So the more lumens you have, the better. And then I think no one's really ever talked about diffusion underwater. So now that I've learned about diffusion on the surface, I think that like seawater maybe just has enough particles in it that it diffuses it, you know,
Yeah.
automatically. Yeah. So I don't. It doesn't seem to ever be a problem. So I guess that's what's happening. Now, one of the problems, as you can imagine, is you know you have both hands occupied trying to like move around like this and find your subject. So my new setup that I haven't gone to try yet, but I'm really excited to use, is this ring light that I got from Flow Dive Center not too long ago. And so we have a like a ring that goes around the camera like this, and then you can. It's really bright, and you can have different settings and an SOS setting. And what's even more interesting is that it now has a color light. So if I have my subject in front of me and maybe I have another light source on that subject, maybe I want the background to be red or blue because that adds more contrast. It makes it more interesting. So I can add a red or a blue background, and that's like a creative way to like make your photographs more interesting. And it gets even better because on top of that, if that wasn't ridiculous enough, let me just attach this. The package that I got from Flow Dive Center also came with like a little snoot that goes over the top. So I can now have, well, that's the color one. I can now have this snoot on top, so I can have my subject in frame and under a white light, and then have like, well, this is a red octopus, so it would look better with a blue background. And you can see that like my hand would be blue, or the coral that the octopus is on is blue, but the octopus itself is in white light, so you'd get a fantastic image out of that. And actually, Mel, you have a perfect example of, still learning how to turn this off. You have a perfect example. Your candy crab that you took in our last Tiamen trip, you used a blue light behind this red crab, and it just brought out this amazing contrast that came out really, really well. So this is my current setup, and I can use all of this with one hand. So I can have one other hand, you know, maybe holding on to a piece of barren rock that has no coral or anything on it with one finger, and I can balance on that and just go in with my camera like that. So that's my new underwater setup right now.
Are you excited to try it out? Unfortunately, we can't.
I know. Oh, I'm dying to use it. Yeah, I'll have to content myself with going down to my swimming pool and having this, in the swimming pool and like practice, moving in and moving out. But oh well.
Yeah, on the subject of lighting, so what you've shared is basically one thing is snoot. That's my personal favorite as well, especially for macro subjects, because the difference is like what Roy has shown. So you have a small subject like this, let's say, right, like this, and if you want to get photos that are black out at the side, okay, you have the snoot right on top, okay. And that is going to illuminate your subject. So a snoot is actually powerful enough. And if you want to get photos that is, black out at the side, just focus on your subject. A snoot is perfect. But of course, like what Roy has mentioned earlier as well, you need to be careful because you might blow your whole subject. Meaning to say, the intensity of light might be too strong. So what happens is it will be too white and you can't see your subject. So some torches, actually the one that Roy is using is the Bubble Scuba HP Pro, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's so it actually has the old version. Yeah, that's the old version. We do have the new version. That's actually, it comes with a microscope. No, it's not microscope. It comes with a lens actually to focus the light even more. And you can actually adjust the light intensity. So if you click on the button, the intensity will drop. So you can adjust the like what Roy was saying earlier. Instead of it being too harsh, the light is being too harsh, you can adjust it to be softer. Another more easier way, if you don't want to change the lighting of your torch, you can always adjust the torch you pulled it away. That's an easier way that I always use because I don't want to turn on and off my torch again. So that's something that you guys can do. And the ring light that Roy was saying, there are torches as well that comes with RGB torch. Bubble Scuba actually has that, and that's how I did my Candy Crab photo. So exactly what Roy is saying. Subject is over here. Put the torch at the back, okay, and then you can actually put the snoot on top, okay. So it's a little bit tedious. The setup that Roy has, the ring light with the torch, the snoot torch, is amazing because all you need to do is one hand and you can actually click. But imagine you have one torch, one camera, and another torch from the side. You will definitely need a rig for that. We do have rigs available as well. But there's pros and cons using rigs. If you use rigs, some small creases in coral reefs and rocks and things like that, it's very hard for you to go in and get a good shot, especially if you have really tiny nudibranchs. It's hard for you to get those photos. But of course, if you do have rigs and all, it will definitely help you with stabilizing your photos. It will help you with, if you have lens, if you have lights and things like that, it will definitely help you with all of those kind of things. So another kind of lights that you have, you can also get video lights as well. Video lights are actually continuous lights. It really depends on what kind of photography you like. So today, I think Roy and I, we are both macro enthusiasts. We love macro shoots and macro subjects. So Snoot is amazing for macro. If you want to go big, means you want to take pelagic photos, videos, and things like that, you definitely need much stronger lights. You need strobes, you need video light and things like that, which we can talk about. If you guys are interested, share your comments. If you guys are interested in pelagic or wide angle photography and videography, share in the comments, and we will probably get someone who's amazing in it to share. But today, like I said, Roy and I, we are both macro enthusiasts. We will focus more on macro photography for those who are a bit, I want to know more about wide angle photography. Yeah. Now, yes, go ahead, Roy.
I was going to say, maybe I could show some examples of like snoot photography so they can kind of see what I'm getting at, and maybe just kind of quickly jump in there.
Sure.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, here's probably one of my favorites. So this nudibranch was sitting on kind of like this piece of coral. It was jutting out, and then this was all floating in free water or whatever. But behind it was like tons of coral that I didn't want in the shot. So by having a snoot, you have this one beam of light that you can focus only on your subject, and then all of the background is just black. So you can get these really isolated subjects, even if you have a bunch of coral. For instance, when you look at nudibranches, a lot of the times they're crawling around on the coral, so it's really hard to isolate the subject without all that coral in the background. And what you really want to do is get that coral out of the way. So you want these kind of lovely contrast of the pure black along with the edge of your subject using the snoot. And to give you an example of why that's kind of better than, let me just try and find. Okay. So these are pictures from my very first macro dive trip anywhere, and it was in Juara Bay. And some of these, let me just find. Like, I think there's some really good examples of, this is actually we're about to get into composition now, but you can see that this picture of this nudibranch is really not as interesting as, this one, where you're down at, looking at it head on, and you can get you can get the contrast between your subject and the back, and the black background. So what you're really trying to do is isolate your subject as much as possible. And the snoot really helps you do that because, there could be coral and rock really close by here, but because the light is so focused, you just don't get it, and you don't see that. So you get to isolate your subject a lot better. And you can see that this picture. I mean, I personally wouldn't go for it very much because you have all that background in there. I think this is using one of my other first dive lights. wasn't very good light quality either. So invest in a high-powered light is another tip for you. And then if we go to my other folder from the amazing trip we did to Antelope, you know, you can get more shots like where a nudibranch was crawling down the side of a sort of a rock, and it just stuck its head out for a brief moment into the light coming from my snoot, so I could get this perfectly isolated shot of its head just jutting out like that. And then
That is one of my favorite photos from you, Roy. It looks like an alien.
Yeah, I love it. It came out really well, and I even love the blur on the tips. I don't even know what was going on there, but there's so much, like there was a surprising amount of texture there, and yeah, I thought that came out. That seems to be really popular. So trying to think of anything else. Oh, and here's another good example of like just isolation. So I had my snoot to the left of the subject, and then the shrimp was on a rock looking straight out, and so I just very carefully positioned my snoot until only the shrimp was in the light. So I got this, you know, you can get these perfectly isolated, shrimp, just sitting in pure blackness, which, you know, it's something I love doing, but I've noticed a lot of other macro photographers they're not huge fans of that. So I don't know, I guess it just depends on what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's not right or wrong. So it really depends on what you like and your own preference. I think at the end of the day, it really is about you testing out your own style. I think even for your style, Roy, I think you've changed so much since you started taking up a camera. So guys, just FYI, just a very quick fun fact, like Roy has never ever played with a camera before his trip. His first trip was actually to Juara. He booked that trip because he signed up for the Anilao trip. So,
That's right. Yeah.
He's a very focused person. You know, I want to take up photography, and he just went full out. And he's been self-learning a lot. And as you can see, his photography style has changed as well. From Juara, like the photo that you've shown, you've mentioned as well, like this is the kind of photo that you won't even use because you can actually see the background and things like that. To, you know, even your nudibranch photos and things like that. So it really changes, and it is what you like. There's no right or wrong. It's really what you like. Back to composition, as you were saying earlier. So couple of rule of thumb that I think Roy and myself personally love is that I think if you want to take subjects, always make sure that their eyes are in focus. For nudibranchs in particular would be the gills. Okay, those are very important. And composition in the sense of, for example, if you take it from the top, if it's a top-down view versus a frontal view, it's gonna make a huge difference as well to your photo. Generally, again, for Roy, just now he's mentioned, and myself also, we like to have a frontal view or a side view of the subject. We do have another buddy of ours. Her name is Kelly. It's funny because we went to Anilao, and she would stay there for the whole dive. Like all of us, we are just crazy. Like there's so many macros, and we would just go like five minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes there. But she just stays there in one subject for the longest time, and she wants to get the exact symmetrical photo. Like for example, a frogfish, and you will have the exact same symmetrical photo, which is right in front. So it's from a side view, it's a face view, and it's very symmetrical. So again, it very much depends on what kind of photos you want to get. I personally feel that there's beauty in different kinds of photography. But yeah, a very good rule of thumb is always try to get the eyes in focus. Always try to get, especially for nudibranchs, to get the gills in focus. Another thing is earlier, Roy's photos, they're all purely just with TG5. There's no lens involved, right? You don't use any macro lens at all. Yeah.
Nope. So all the underwater stuff, that's all TG5.
Yeah. So TG5 has, the TG series, like in general, actually, since the 3, 4, 5, 6, has always been one of the best underwater photography camera that anyone can get, beginners to even intermediate, or even to professional divers. They're still using uh, the Olympus because they have one of the best macro photography cameras that you can get. So likewise, I said, I personally I haven't started using, I've gotten a close-up lens already, but I haven't tried it yet. But so far, all my photos as well is just the camera itself.
And
So
actually, I didn't mention it, but yeah, the TG5 is a good compact camera, but it's like weatherproof, and you can throw it over a cliff and it will survive the fall. But yeah, it's basically a microscope attached to a compact camera. And I think one of the things that amazed me the most was when I first bought it, I was just fooling around with it in my apartment, and a small fly was like buzzing around me, like a little tiny gnat. And so I slapped it, and it fell onto the table. And so just for fun, I actually zoomed in with my TG5, and I could see the hairs on its legs because even on this tiny fly, because the macro is so good with on the TG5. And I think it's also worth pointing out the TG5 has a small sensor because it's basically a crop sensor, and because of the way physics works, the smaller the sensor on the camera, the better your depth of field for macro. So if you actually have a full frame, this is one of those instances where having a full frame camera will actually be worse for macro because your depth of field will be much shallower specifically for macro, which is why Olympus OMD EM5 is actually very good for macro because it has a micro four thirds sensor. So it's actually a little bit better setup for macro stuff.
do
Just
you
a little
actually
quick thing there.
use any lens for your land photography ones?
Yeah, I mean, I have good question actually. Let me show you. So I've got just the M Zuiko 60 mil. I tried tons of different lenses and combinations, and I just found that this one did a fantastic job. After a lot of experimentation, remember I was talking about f-stop numbers earlier. I actually learned the hard way because someone else said, "Oh no, I shoot on f11," and f11 means it's a shorter aperture, but you have a better depth of field. And I've noticed a lot of macro guys seem to like having like a really big depth of field, whereas I'm much more kind of preferential to like softer kind of bokeh effects. But I actually found that you actually get more sharp images at a wider aperture. So at lower f-stop numbers, at least on this lens for my camera, for some reason, I get sharper images on the parts that are in focus at like f7. And so like right now, f7 is where I seem to be happiest. And then, so I use this, and then for, if I really want to get close up, I have a Raynox DCR 250, then that pops on the front. So you can see I have this ridiculous contraption now. And then that gives me my, if you ever see a picture on my Instagram of like literally an entire ant, the whole ant is just filling the frame. That's probably using this. And, a lot of my shots of jumping spiders where it's like really, blown up right up front. That's probably using that. So that, these attachments are useful. And you can, this is like a pop-on attachment, but you can actually unscrew this and screw it into your lens and use that underwater. So that is one thing you can do. But then you're only going to be able to shoot like super macro. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
Okay, so another
We should probably go back to composition, but yeah.
Another really important thing that a lot of divers forgot about or don't take into account is actually buoyancy when it comes to photography. So I think buoyancy plays a huge role because imagine if you're not stable, if you're not steady, the camera is gonna shake, your body is gonna shake, your photo is gonna be harder to focus. So if you want to get a sharp photo, it's definitely much harder as well. So that said, a lot of people will then compensate their buoyancy by smashing onto corals, which is something that no one ever should do because no photograph is going to be worth the corals, guys. So buoyancy is very, very important when it comes to taking your photographs and your your videos. So make sure that you perfect your buoyancy. And this is why personally I always recommend my students to not even, you know, get into any cameras or videography or anything once you get your license, right? Just enjoy your dive first, perfect your buoyancy first, and then when you're ready, then you can get into photography and videography. So I think a few comments that I always hear from divers is that even from yourself as well, Roy, like because I do dive a lot and I teach. So in terms of buoyancy, I'm definitely much more comfortable than a lot of divers. And when you see, I usually at max, if I want to stabilize myself, I'll have one hand in my camera and the other finger will just be touching the corals. And that's it. That is the max that I actually do. So try your best to not try to ruin any corals. Of course, if the sand, if the bottom is sand, that's fine. You know, if you want to sit on the sand, that's fine. But if there's any corals or anything, just be very careful. Do not kill any corals. Do not get yourself injured. There might be fishes as well that's over there, so you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to hurt the fish as well. So,
you know, and one of the best things about macro is that a lot of the subjects that we're looking for are in the areas that no one wants to see. So, you know, in Jwara, there's a couple of dive sites where it's just washed off dead coral, totally it's just being processed by the natural sea, and it's all broken and dead. And that's where all the macro subjects are. So actually, in a lot of macro areas, it's not that bad to like go down and just sit, like rest on the seafloor. But Mel, you absolutely are the king of buoyancy, or the queen of buoyancy, and you know, it's so inspiring to, like, every now and again I'll turn around, I'll see you just totally still in the water, and like I've never understood how you managed to do it, but I'm trying, I'm working on it. I'd really like to be able to have that ability one day. Yeah.
You just need to be an instructor and your buoyancy be perfect. Trust me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. So guys, buoyancy it's a whole other topic altogether. You can actually take peak performance buoyancy courses and things like that. Speak to your instructors. Talk to me if you want to know more. Buoyancy also helps you with your air consumption as well. It makes your air consumption much better because you're much more comfortable in diving. So all these things actually come to play and to help your photography to improve much better. Other than that, let's see, Roy. Yes, you want to add on? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, buoyancy, absolutely, great, and definitely. I recommend a peak performance buoyancy course. Definitely. Before we're done, I do have some shout outs, or I mean, are we going to wrap up with like 1 hour?
Yeah,
or?
I still have.
Oh, okay.
No,
Oh, okay, good. Oh, great. Okay, great.
More questions.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
Now, I think I do also want to ask you about your post editing. You have mentioned that you're using the Adobe Lightroom. Do you have any tips and tricks? I know some people are very adamant and very against using post editing, but I personally see no issues with that. So it's really up to you. Like I said, there's no right or wrong as long as you like your photos good enough. So, I mean, Roy uses Lightroom. So if you can, maybe you can share some tips, easy tips for people just maybe slightly edit their photos to make it much better.
Yeah. Oh man, editing has been such a journey almost. I'm almost trying to think of which picture. Well, here's an example of a really heavily edited picture. So I mean, this is at f2.8. So you can see, like, this is an example of where the eyes are not in focus, and that kind of ruins the image. But one of the things in Lightroom is that you can press a button and see the original picture. So you can see that this was, clearly I didn't have my flash on high enough. The eye isn't in focus, but using editing, I can actually turn that into a little bit more of an interesting image. And recently in the last couple of months, I'll use this image as well. One of the things that I've really learned a lot from using Lightroom, at least, is that when I go into the settings, so here you can see all the different settings that Adobe lets you manipulate. One of the first things I've started doing is I just press the auto function. So I'll just press auto, and it will immediately set all of these different parameters to what it thinks is the perfect answer for this picture.
Hold on, yeah,
And
Roy.
yeah,
How
sure.
can you maybe zoom in a little bit? And then how do you actually get this? Oh, you can't zoom the whole the settings area.
Oh,
Yeah, you can. Right?
no, I don't. No,
Oh,
I
okay,
wouldn't.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
I wouldn't know how to.
How,
Yeah, sorry, I
how
can't do that.
how do you get this screen, like this option?
Okay, so here we are in Lightroom, and then we go into what the picture that we would like to edit. This is a robber fly, by the way, so they're a carnivorous type of insect that preys on other insects. They're kind of like the F-16 of the insect world. They're really macro photographers absolutely love them. I love them, and they're really interesting subjects. The ones in Bukit Gesing are absolutely tiny, so they're really challenging. But so what happens is you're going into your photo, and then here on the right, can you see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
You can look at all of these different editing, functions. So
Mm-hmm.
the way that Lightroom is set up is you go from light, then you edit your color, then you can add effects, so like a vignette, or you can sharpen the image, or de-sharpen it if you want, and you can go into detail in different setups. And honestly, the way I learned Lightroom was just by spending a long time editing my pictures, and then gradually over time you get better and better. You develop your own preferences, but this is absolutely a creative part of the whole process. So I'm going to go. Oop, did I lose my original settings? Probably. Let me see. Reset to. Oh dear. It looks like I've lost my editing. Oh well, I'll have to re-edit it later. But one of the things I learned in the last couple of months is that I let Lightroom auto set my light. So I would probably put it more like there, but you just need to make sure you're not blowing up the whites. So you can see on the histogram that the whites aren't getting blown up. And then I noticed that Adobe Lightroom was setting my highlights down. And I thought that was really interesting because I never did that on my own before this. So I kind of kept watching it set my shadows really high and the highlights really low. And I'm starting to find that that works quite well for my stuff. So that's one of the tricks. So yeah, the takeaway from this is maybe just play around with the auto function. Let Lightroom edit your photo for you as far as the light is concerned, and then kind of learn from what it's doing. And that was a really great way for me to learn. And then going into color, so Lightroom lets you change it from cold. That's like an extreme version to warm, and it will go from sort of a more pink, or I guess green, and more pink color. So sometimes this is really good if you need to color correct. So a lot of times, like especially in underwater photography, your colors will come out wrong. Lightroom lets you select an area that you say is white, so you can click on that, and it will alter every other color to make it the right color. But I also use this in a creative way, so I'll make my pictures colder or warmer depending on what I want to do. And then obviously you can set your vibrance to make the color like really pop out, or really subtle and really set in the background. Saturation, again, the same. You can get really strong colors or really low. There's a really interesting creative way that I use this sometimes. So let me just find an image that would work well for this. If you have an image that's like predominantly, if I find an image that's really good contrast, just trying to find. So what would I use? Well, let's just take this image for instance. So let's assume that I want the red in that eye to pop out really strongly, but I don't want all this yellow to come out. If I turn the saturation up, it will bring the red out in the eye, but the background of the image also comes up. Well, one of the things I can do is I can specifically, just for yellow, turn the yellow down. And then what that does is it pops all the color on my subject, but because the background is mainly yellow, it makes it look like the subject is just incredibly colorful. So that's like a little way you can kind of cheat and make your images more interesting. I think this is a good point where I can take up this diagram. So one of the things that we're talking about composition, so we can talk about the color wheel now, is that there's a theory in photography that where you have like an orange for say, there is a specific blue that would go really well with that. So, if you have yellow, there's a violet that goes really well with that. If you have green, then for humans, it's just pleasing to look at. And there's certain relationships, so you can have a complementary relationship, you can have a triadic, tetradic, and there's lots of different ways of looking at it. It's just a theory, but I do try to kind of pay attention to that. And there's actually a website that you can load your photo into, and you can measure. Let me look. It's called color.adobe.com, where you can literally just throw your picture in there. So extract color. Oh, they've changed the website now. Okay, well, anyway, somewhere on here you could actually load your picture in, and it would show you how close you are to a perfect color relationship. So that's another technique that I use, at least in my photography. What else can we do? We're almost done with the with this kind of composition. This is a little cold, so I'm going to raise the temperature a tad. And then let's go to effects, and you can go to like clarity and dehaze. Dehaze is really important for underwater photography because a lot of the times, with all that water between your camera and the subject, you can get some haze. So this is like the industry leading software for dehazing apparently, and it's very, very good at it. And then clarity, you can see that if you whack that up, it looks like it really helps your image, retain a lot of its sharp. And then you can add a vignette if you want, or you can go the other way. That's a creative effect. And then you go to detail, and you can add sharpening. You can add a lot of sharpening, or like a little bit. And then you can use masking to only apply it to the subject. So if you press Alt, you can see where that sharpening is being added. So you can see I don't need sharpening back here, right? So by using masking and turning it up to only where I want it, I can get the sharpening exactly how I like it. And
so you're clicking alternate with that, right?
Say what's that?
Alternate with the that function.
Yeah. I'm holding down the Alt button and then selecting the mask, and that was a little trick I learned off a YouTube tutorial. So this really helped because now it meant that I only sharpen the image where it needs to be sharpened, because otherwise it looks like crap.
Okay.
And then lastly, the all-important noise reduction. So I usually, you have to be very careful with how you use it because, like we have this lovely sharp eye that we lose that sharpness once we increase the noise reduction. And you can see that it almost turns into kind of like a painting, like an oil painting when we whack it up too high. Whereas if we have it at 0, you can see that I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but there's a lot of grain. So the image looks very noisy. So I usually try to be I only use it as much as I have to. So usually less than 20 is my rule of thumb. And obviously, if you have your ISO at 100 all the time, you probably won't have this problem very much. So yeah, that's an example of how I edit. And I have one more trick, if that's okay, Mel, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead. Your in and out though, your sound.
Oh really? Oh, okay. Well, hopefully other people can hear it. So there's one other trick for editing that I've only really learned in the last couple months that it's changed how I'm now taking the picture. So it's called focus stacking. So a lot of the times, as I mentioned before, when you're taking a picture, the focus plane especially on small subjects, becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's like you're moving this tiny field of focus over a subject. And especially when you're looking at like this robber fly here, that usually means that the body is in focus and then the eye won't be in focus. And then you'll take 100 pictures and you'll end up with a picture of the body that's in focus and then one with the eye that's in focus. And what you want to do is combine those two images together. So this is a video on YouTube. If you search for me, Roy the Diver on YouTube, you can see some examples of this that I've uploaded. And so here,
hold on. So you're still using the Lightroom, or is this a Photoshop?
So yeah, this is in a free open source software called GIMP, GIMP. And it's like a free Lightroom that people just it's like open source. I also use Photoshop Photoshop is actually very good for focus stacking because it will automatically align all of your images together, which saves you a lot of time. And in GIMP, I had to do it manually, but when it's just two images trying to align, it doesn't really take too much time. So here I've got one image of the robber fly with the body in focus, and then another image with the eye in focus. And you can see, like, there's my little cursor. So you can see one is the eye in focus, and then and then the eye is not in focus, but the body is more in focus. So I'm going to combine these two images by laying them one over the other, and then I align the images, and now I'm just going to erase the eye from the first image, I think, if I get on with it in the video. So you can see all of a sudden now, and now the eye's in focus. So one of the things that I do is I always make sure when I have subjects like this, I try and take as many pictures as I can, because you never know which one is going to have an eye in focus, or maybe another one the antenna will be in focus, or somehow you'll be able to combine a couple of images and get a really compelling image from both of them together. So it's just one of these secret weapons that I've kind of discovered recently that it's almost making me go back through my old stuff and start looking at how I can improve some of those. So don't be so quick to throw out your pictures. That makes sense. So okay, yeah. There you go. A quick Photoshop tutorial. There you go.
So great. Thanks for sharing so much, Roy. So just let me recap. Add in if you think I've missed out anything. A couple of tips, especially for beginner photographer, is number one, get a simple gear. I feel get a simple and sufficient gear is good enough for you to start learning and practicing. Don't bother getting too complicated gears, because underwater as well, you have to think about buoyancy, you have to think about your settings, you have to think about lighting, and all is different at different levels. So you have to really think a lot underwater. So my recommendation tips would be get an easy point and shoot camera first. TG series is amazing. And you also need a very good lighting. That for macro photography that you want to actually get into first would be snoot lights would be very, very easy for you to use. And then you can also look into perfecting your buoyancy. Perfecting your buoyancy is very, very important. A couple more tips would be make sure that you get your eyes sharp. Eyes of the subject to be very sharp. That would be, I like to call it the soul of the picture lah. Okay. Composition as well, where you are actually positioning your camera, would be very, very important. From the top down, again, it depends on what you want to shoot, but usually it doesn't work that well. Try to go from the front of the subject. That would be very, very useful. A couple more things would be, there's always the rule of thirds.
One other rule that I've thought about it, and I've looked at my pictures, and it seems to hold quite well, is they talk about giving the subject space. So, don't, imagine I'm a subject, having me right in the middle of the picture is not as compelling as having me to the side and looking that way. They talk, I've read about this in nature photography as well, where you're supposed to give the subject space to move into. So if you have a subject that's looking that way, you want that space in front of it. Whereas imagine if I'm a subject looking here on the edge of your picture, it's not as good. So, make sure you're giving your subject a little bit of space. And that's kind of where the rule of thirds comes in. It's really about positioning your subject so it has space to move into.
Yeah. So rule of thirds are very, very important. Another thing would be what I want to say. I think would be practicing, really just go all out, snap. Like what Roy said, don't throw your photos away. If you think that it's bad, no worries. You can always use it as practice for your post editing. But no worries, don't worry about, my photo doesn't look good, I'm not a good photographer. Just go on and snap. There's no loss to it, right? Snap as much photos as you want. Again, some of the photos you can actually save through post editing. Some tips that Roy has already shared. So just snap, just have fun, snap. The more photos the better. Okay. I think what else, Roy? Any additional tips?
I had one thing at the end. I was gonna. I have a little slide to show lots of people's Instagrams that I like, and some other areas that people can go and look at, and they can just take a screenshot and follow it up later. Is that all right if I show that now, or?
Yeah, sure, Roy. Maybe later, what you can do is you can share the links of, for example, Lightroom. You were saying the other.
Yeah.
You can share all this type of information on the Facebook live, the whole comment section itself. You can share as well your go-to settings, up to you. But you can share all this information. Yeah, you can definitely share all this information.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to quickly, because I wanted to point out some of this other stuff really, really quickly here. I wanted to just give some, anyone who's watching this, you can screenshot this and kind of look at some of the different photographers that I personally follow and I'm a big fan of. These three photographers here, Anne, Jimmy, and Kenji, are all the dive masters from Amigo Dive Center in Juara Bay and Tioman Island, and they are absolutely fantastic. You know, they've really had some time to hone their skills, and they produce some absolutely astonishing photography. Lillian Ko is another one who just produces insanely good underwater photography, and two of my friends here, Pauline Wong and Homerson Oi, also produce some amazing stuff. So there's their Instagrams. And in terms of like improving your photography, the best way I can recommend to anyone is to go to like photography groups on Facebook are amazing for this. And the best one that I've found is underwater macro photographers on Facebook, because you'll get, the more you see, the better your composition will get, and the more ideas you'll have for when you're underwater and you only have 40 minutes to find a subject and then take pictures of it. You'll already have a good idea of what you're going to do. And this forum, they force people to post their settings, so you'll know what kind of f-stops and what kind of settings they have on their camera. And then I also want to recommend all of these macro and just nature photography Instagrams. Stephen Wong is a great outdoor guide here in KL. He'll take lots of people on nature tours, so feel free to get in touch with him for any excursions. And he also does camera tutorials, so he'll help you get the most out of your camera. Wayne Sinte is an amazing and very young. He's only 17 years old, but he's already getting some award-winning photographs. Nightfall Photography is a new one I found recently, and this Instagram not only does amazing macro, it actually, each picture, he puts like this whole paragraph of like tips on doing macro photography, and they're absolutely amazing. So I really recommend that to everyone. And this guy, John Oliver Dunn, just has an insane gallery for macro. And then of course here's some other photographers for people to look at. But yeah, just screenshot that, and then I highly recommend all of that to help your photography. Yeah.
Yes. So Roy, you'll be sharing that in the Facebook comments as well, so
Sure,
everyone can go and check them out. So if you guys have any questions, guys, feel free to add on to the comment section. I will try to address them. Unfortunately, I can't do it now because somehow when I play the video, the sound actually plays as well. So it's a little bit hard for me to actually reply together. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. If you have any questions for Roy, just comment below as well. Just to close this, I just want to mention a couple of shameless plug, a couple of promos that we are having. We do have the Olympus TG5 and underwater casing that is actually on promo. We also have bubble scuba lights and also the kit setup as well on promo as well. So you guys can check that out. Those are actually on our Facebook page. We do have courses that would be relevant for you, which is the Peak Performance Buoyancy course, as well as the Underwater Digital Photography course as well. That's going to be on promo. We are supposed to have our workshop for Introduction to Photography with Mohan, and as well as an Olympus representative, but unfortunately due to COVID, it has to be pushed. So we will actually inform you guys when it's going to be up again, but that's definitely going to happen. So if you guys want to still sign up, feel free to sign up. And of course, last but not the least, we also have trips that are planned to go for macro photography. Again, we will try by this year, if not next year, to try to get at least Juara out. You know, Juara is amazing for macro photography. Tons of things that you think that you can't see in Malaysia, they have them. So
and they also, the 3 dive instructors that go with you are like master photographers themselves. So like they know how to get the right angle. They know where all the subjects are. Like everything's just taken care of for you. And what's probably even better is that I'll be there to like drink beer with you and go diving as well. So what else do you need? You know?
Roy will share his tips and his tricks with you guys, man. So yeah, it's always a fun trip when you get on a macro photography trip. You get to learn lots of things. You share your love for photography as well as all these sea creatures and macro creatures as well. So join us. If you guys have any questions, if you guys want to sign up for courses, feel free, just WhatsApp us or drop us a message, a personal message. We'll be more than happy to set you guys up. Okay, so thank you for tuning in, guys. I hope that it has been very insightful. Next week we'll have another session, probably either Facebook or Instagram. We haven't decided yet, but it will be also a very interesting session. And you guys will definitely see the whole team of Flow. Yeah. So thank you very much. Thanks, Roy. And good night, guys.
Thanks a lot, Mel. Thanks. That was really good. Thanks you.